And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, it wasn't just people kicking out cursing at the LA City Council meeting. There was also an appearance by our friend. He goes by the name of 3-Inch Shrimp, and he's got a bone to pick with the city of Los Angeles when it comes to after-school programs.
51 is about the subsidized after-school program. Yes. I want to ask several questions to our Blue Mandingos right here.
Bob Blumenfeld was presiding over the council, and he calls him Blue Mandingo.
Well, he got close enough.
Since he advocated an after-school program, you have advocated to send all the kids, kids down Figueroa Street.
Oh, my. I didn't know that was an after-school program.
Well, you'd get quite an education.
And then somehow right now, you want some special after-school program. You are the one who indoctrinate every single kids about the Black Lives Matter. And then right now, you want after-school program. You are the one who forced the children to believe Palestinian lives matter, and then LGBT, please change your penis to your vagina, all of those things. And
wait, that's an after-school program?
Well, if so, let me tell you. Do they do that in the gym?
So glad that you hesitated, because I'm sure you stopped yourself from saying something I was going to dump.
I did.
And then right now, you want a good after-school program. Too late, Blow Mandingo.
I'm so proud of you. You stopped yourself.
We could grow. We can evolve. We can get older. 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You know, Randy, after telling the story about that high-speed chase that I saw when I was in school, if you weren't around to watch after-school programming in the 1990s, it's kind of hard to describe because it was just so wild. I'm a little bit older than you, so I think I got more of it than you did. But you'd come home from school and your options were the OJ trial, watching Disney cartoons that would get cut into all the time for high-speed chases complete with gunplay, or you could watch Sylvia Brown on Montel Williams tell the grieving parents of a missing child that she was dead.
Quite a lot of options.
It was wild. It was a lot of fun, but it was wild. All right. Now, we've got a podcast we've got to focus on right now because the former district attorney of Alameda County, Pamela Price, is back. And she not only does her own podcast, but on occasion, she's the guest on other people's podcasts.
She called me a crime boss.
Pamela Price had some getting even to do on the Dr. Talia Moore podcast. She calls herself the criminologist of the Bay. And Pamela Price had a lot of blame to throw around for why things went so badly when she was district attorney of Alameda County.
I've been bipped several times.
Well, if Seinfeld is the theme today, then why not have a Festivus angle too?
It's time for the airing of the grievances, everybody. Let's start with Pamela Price and what she says was media bias against her because she was a black woman.
So, Madam Price, critics...
Oh, yeah. The woman doing the interview was told she has to call her Madam Price.
Well, that's what she required her employees to call her, correct?
That's right.
Quite frankly.
One of her first things that she did was an official directive to all employees in Alameda County in the district attorney's office to refer to her as Madam DA.
Well, you know, on Seinfeld, there was the guy who demanded to be called the Maestro.
So, Madam Price, critics said you were poor at explaining your policies.
Yes.
To the public. However, your supporters said that the media was biased as soon as you stepped into your position.
Guess which one she's going to run with.
So how would you respond to those statements?
I definitely agree with my supporters that the media's bias towards change, as well as wanting.
Because you know what's the most conservative outlet out there? The San Francisco Chronicle and Cron 4.
Oh, yeah, that's practically Fox News.
As well as wanting to generate conflict was painfully apparent from almost immediately. And I think the challenge that folks did not appreciate is that the media is part of a system that supports a status quo. And
I didn't realize we were getting into conspiracy theories already.
Oh, yeah, here comes the tinfoil hat.
And so
By the way, the status quo that she is railing against is prosecutors prosecuting crimes.
We have to move away from that.
And so we represented a huge change from the status quo. The example is in 2022, when I was running for office, the media was not interested at all in what I had to say or covering our platform.
They thought you were a gadfly, Pammy, because you ran last time and lost.
Okay, if you had to put a substantial amount of money on a poker table and you were forced to bet one way or the other, do you think this woman believes 9/11 was an inside job?
Quite frankly. But as soon as we got into office, we were deluged with media requests and requests for information.
Well, there were a lot of victims of crime that were trying to figure out what the hell you were doing.
And she didn't make herself available to the press often at all.
In fact, you remember she had that seminar where she rented out space at the Coliseum and tried to block Dan Noyes from ABC7 from entering and finding out what she was trying to teach her employees. And what she was trying to teach her employees was a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I was actually up there when that happened because the Angels were playing the A's, and I went up for that series. And it was a weird series because it started on Thursday. They took Friday off, and then they were back on Saturday and Sunday. And her event was on that Friday. She had the building rented out. And when I showed up on Saturday, some of the employees at the Coliseum told me that she was doing exercises like bringing in coloring books for the DAs.
Oh, the good old days when Oakland still had a major sports team.
And we still got our Oakland A's, baby.
No, you don't.
And there was just a slew of stories, and my photograph and my name became clickbait. And they did that intentionally. It helped both. It's a motivation for making money.
Okay.
Yeah, they're putting their kids through college based on clickbait involving your face.
So there's a massive conspiracy between ABC7, KPIX, KTVU Fox 2, Cron 4, NBC Bay Area, and I guess us, because we were up there on the nights, to just talk about you relentlessly so we could make money.
Wait, how is this any different from what Gavin Newsom is alleging with the oil companies? He's saying the same thing. He's saying all of the oil companies got together in a boardroom and conspired against one state, California, so that the prices are higher here than everywhere else.
By creating the conflict. But it's also
reporting on the actual conflict that you were firing people left and right and telling attorneys not to do their job, getting rid of sentencing enhancements and a whole lot of other things. That was the conflict. What are the stations supposed to do? Ignore that?
Well, what she wanted is she wanted the local television and radio stations to put out her company line. That by reporting on her critically or reporting on her accurately, it made her look bad. Well, of course it's going to make her look bad. She was awful at her job. But if you put out the company line, then you could just say that she's doing fine, even though she's not. And it's easy to see how she could come to that conclusion. Look at what this press corps does when they cover the bullet train. Or look at what the press corps does when they cover crime or the insurance crisis or whatever the case may be. If Newsom comes out and says the bullet train is a smashing success and that's what they print, or they don't print the truth, They don't say, oh no, the bullet train is a complete failure and it's a boondoggle and it's something that's never going to get completed. Then they're doing Newsom's bidding. From her point of view, if they do the bidding for Newsom, why not do the bidding for her too?
But it's also a reflection of the fact that most of the time when you have a status quo prosecutor, the media is not actually getting their information from the prosecutor. They're getting it from the police. And so our administration was independent of the police force.
You can't
Whoa. They got it in many cases from the victims. When we would play those raps on this program, how often, Randy, would the victim be the one talking to the news?
Many times. And including that, you also had people who worked in that office for many years that resigned because she's so crazy and went across the Bray Bridge to go work for Brooke Jenkins.
Of the police forces and the unions that control the narrative around crime.
So now she's anti-union.
Well, she is because the unions hated her too.
That control the narrative around crime in most cities. And so the media had that narrative. And if you look back at the coverage, you can see how they placed anything that I said or did was placed in the context of the police narrative as if there was something suspicious and the public should be concerned about what we were doing.
Well, they should be very concerned.
So it was not helpful.
Yeah.
Let's hear what Pammy had to say about the recall.
You know, despite the challenges that you encountered, you actually were able to make some real significant changes around reform. You reduced You
know what the biggest change was? Before Pamela Price, there used to be an In-N-Out burger in Oakland.
And you used to be able to eat your lunch at the Taco Bell in the dining room.
You reduced sentencing enhancements. You refused to charge juveniles as adults. You launched a public accountability unit for police misconduct.
Because, of course, that's the job of the district attorney. Go after the cops and don't prosecute the criminals. Because, and you remember she said this in an interview, sometimes, many times, the suspects in crimes are the real victims.
Oh, yes. It's just like what Gascon used to do. Whenever someone would ask him about some crime rate going up, he'd say, well, the real crime is wage theft.
So from a criminological perspective, what was the theory behind these changes and how did they not translate in the spaces?
Well, I think they did translate. And I think, as I look back on it, people began the recall almost as soon as I was elected.
Because they were shocked.
Well, they read your platform, and they understood what kind of distinct danger you posed to the community.
And in fact, if you look at the grassroots of that recall, it was Asian residents who were getting assaulted relentlessly in the Chinatown of Oakland, and they saw what was going across the bridge under Chesa Boudin, and they said, we don't want that.
And it wasn't what I was doing. It was what they were afraid of what I would do, that the changes that I talked about in my 10-point platform would actually come to fruition. And
yes, that would be very scary.
Yes, because your platform was to promote criminals and go after the cops.
I take that as a compliment that people believe that I would do what I said I would do. And I'm proud of that I am not someone that says one thing and does another.
Again, you do have to blame the residents of Alameda County and also ranked choice voting. She was straight up with what she was going to do, and they said yes. Chesa Boudin was straight up with what he was going to do, and San Francisco said yes. And George Gascon was straight up about his nonsense. We even got a letter from London Breed saying, don't elect this jackass, and we still did it.
Quite frankly.
At a certain point, the electorate is the problem.
And so they understood that, apparently respected me from my the life that I've led and the work that I've done. So they were afraid that I was actually going to do what I said I was going to do. And so as we started those things, certainly there was resistance, as we've talked about on the inside, from lawyers who were not prepared to accept the changes.
You mean because they got into this line of work to put criminals away and you said, oh, we're not going to do that anymore?
Yeah, if they wanted to do what you wanted them to do, they would have been criminal defense attorneys and not DAs.
And then on the outside, there were people who were fearful of what we were going to do. And so we didn't have enough time to do all of the things that I committed to do.
Thank goodness.
And then they kicked you out, so you couldn't be destructive for a full term.
Now, here's what's interesting, and we'll start this clip, but we'll have to finish it on the other side of the news, is Pamela Price has a very specific target for what she thinks led to her being recalled, because everyone blamed her for the crime problems in Oakland, and she says all the crime problems in Oakland weren't because of her. They were because Sheng Thao fired LaRon Armstrong on day one.
Don't blame Pammy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that Oakland was in crisis, no question about it. In 2023, Oakland experienced a crisis of its law enforcement operation, the apparatus there. The mayor and the chief fell out.
Fell out? It was the first thing she did.
And she said that the reason she fired him is because she's a girl boss and can.
Like, don't waste our time. We have a whole city to run.
By the way, you want to talk about clickbait? If you go to YouTube and you look at the YouTube channel where I found this, Dr. Talia Moore's podcast, even though she's not mentioned by name, in the screenshot, the graphic that shows you the episode, there is a big old frowny picture of Shengy.
Oh, yeah. That picture is everything. It looks like she could have been a heel manager for the WWF in the 80s.
Absolutely.
We'll hear what Pammy had to say about Shengy firing the police chief when we come back.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, the campaign to get people in Los Angeles to say hello to one another really struck a nerve with the emailers.
The email is full of people not only responding to the hello campaign, but also suggesting which songs we should play that feature the word hello. And I think we've almost got to all of them.
You're like an old-timey disc jockey today. And as we get closer to the end of the show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
Like, let's say you need a little refresher about exactly when it was that Sheng Thao fired LaRon Armstrong, the police chief of Oakland.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you need to figure out what exactly happened in Oakland in 2023.
You know, that's what a mayor do.
Search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast, whether it's the Apple Podcast app.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
iHeart.
That,
Spotify.
You may be frightened, and I know how you feel.
Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
The bureaucracy is real.
You could do a Google on the YouTube.
And that's the truth.
You can get the KABC app. You can get the KSFO app. There are so many different ways to listen to all the coverage we've had over the last 2.5 years of now former Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao.
Oakland Bees!
Let's go back to Pamela Price. How about that?
We got Pammy, all the Pammy you could ever want, as Pamela Price is airing her grievances on Dr. Talia Moore's podcast, The Criminologist of the Bay.
Almost in January of 2023, the mayor got rid of the police chief. And so you had a police department that essentially had an interim leader and a new mayor, and it was struggling. Yeah. At the same time, there was a brief uptake in crime. And
what?
Brief uptick?
Pam, do you need an update on exactly what happened in the year of 2023 alone?
Oh my God, they melted the basketball court.
It's wild, wild west out here.
It's a lot of crime now.
Oakland, I love you, but you don't love me.
And I think this is 2024, but she still gets it.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
That's a good refresher.
At the same time, there was a brief uptake in crime. And so...
yeah, In-N-Out Burger closed on Hagenberger because of a very brief uptick in crime.
They closed that Hilton down that the opposing baseball teams used to stay at.
Oh, there's no baseball there anymore.
That's true.
You know, I had to remind people that for all of 2023 and half of 2024, we didn't have a police chief in Oakland. That
is true. But combine that with the nonsense you were pulling, and you have a recipe for disaster.
And we just told you how that recipe sounds.
That that makes a difference. And so people were looking at me as if I was the mayor of Oakland or if I had control over the police department, which I did not.
But if you don't prosecute crimes, you disincentivize the OPD that's already understaffed and already stressed out to even bother arresting people.
Well, she's a huge part of the reason that they just threw in the towel.
And so that really turned the tide, I think, that there was so much going on in Oakland, so much lack that they lacked. Oh,
yeah, one of the things she did to fight the recall is like, you understand I'm the Alameda County DA, right? Crime's not up in Fremont.
That's the best she can do.
That they focused, the opposition was able to focus and say, well, it's her fault. I got blamed for every carjacking, every business closing.
Hey, is this you?
I've been bipped several times.
I would like to know how many times she was bipped.
Several. One time they stole her DA laptop.
I remember that.
I got blamed for every carjacking, every business closing, even the graffiti, every serious and small crime.
You mean the graffiti, like the graffiti on the postal vans, where then when the postal van would drive into the wrong neighborhood, it would get shot at?
Well, they thought the postman was a member of a warring gang.
Every serious and small crime, everything that normally in a city of the size of Oakland is handled by the police department and the local administration. And
it was all Sheng's fault.
You notice she never calls her out by name and criticizes her by name because they support the same policies. They might have a different flavor, but they're supportive of the same destructive ideas that turned that town from a functioning town into the day after the end of the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that focus being on the problems of Oakland, it steamrolled into making me accountable for all of that. And then, ultimately it was a political argument. It was very political. Yeah.
Well, I can appreciate.
Well, you're in politics.
Yeah, you put your name on the ballot. That's how that works.
And you openly said, while Oakland was in a crime crisis, we're not going to prosecute crime.
Well, I can appreciate you sharing that because I think sometimes we don't realize that without a police chief, right, the level of chaos that ensues.
Right.
And again, being at the end of the pandemic.
Let's also remember why LaRon Armstrong was fired outside of Sheng first saying, oh, she just wanted to do it. It's because LaRon Armstrong was blowing the whistle on the federal monitor that was making 7 figures to keep Oakland in receivership.
And Sheng wanted to get rid of him for that reason, but if she fired him for that reason, he could sue her for cause. So she said, I don't have to give a reason. I'm a girl boss. I'm in charge. I decided I wanted him gone.
I can get that.
Where we were already experiencing strife and trauma, and then to come into this space and there's no real identified leader.
Right. And you have right for a year and a half. I did not.
That is an indictment of the city of Oakland.
That is true. She has a point here.
The Oakland Police Commission dragged their feet as long as possible. And then I think you remember this. They gave Sheng 3 candidates that it took them 9 months to come up with. And then in December of 2023, Sheng said no to all of them. And one of them was bringing back LaRon Armstrong.
And she didn't like the fact that he was one of the names that she was given.
A year and a half. I did not meet the new police chief until May of 2024. That's when he finally got around. I met with LaRon Armstrong, the old police chief, in January of 2023. And we talked about a number of pressing issues in Oakland. The sex trafficking, that I know you supported our efforts on that.
You mean like that homeless encampment that's also a prostitution ring on International Boulevard?
That situation was already out of control. LaRon Armstrong shared with me how challenging that was and the intersectionality of gun violence and human trafficking that was exploding in the San Antonio neighborhood. And that was in January. And then he was gone. And we did not get a chief in Oakland until May of 2023. And when he came, he wasn't even licensed to be a chief in California.
That is true.
Boy, they can't fill out the paperwork on time to get state grant money for the police department. They can't hire 911 operators. And they can't hire a licensed police chief.
For the first few months, Floyd Mitchell, who came to us out of Lubbock, where he blew up that city's 911 system, had to go through training because he was not qualified to be the leader of police officers in the state of California. Oh, it's such a mess.
So he had to go through a program.
But again, Oaklanders picked Sheng. Oaklanders picked Pamela Price. And God help us, Oaklanders picked Barbara Lee Speaks for Me.
I'm telling you, the electorate is the problem.
So he had to go through a program. So Oakland was in crisis in terms of its law enforcement. And this is a department that has been under federal consent decree for 22 years.
And that was because the receiver was making a lot of money to keep it that way.
These law firms, man, they make money hand over fist for these things. If you've ever gone through a bankruptcy or someone who's gone bankrupt owes you money, and there's a law firm that's brought in by the judge to go through it, the law firm ends up taking all of the money, and none of the money goes to the people who are owed money by the person who went bankrupt. It's like this with what's going on in Oakland right now with the federal receiver. The law firms all do just fine, but is the end result a better police department and a safer Oakland, or just a richer law firm?
Well, and look at what's going on now in Los Angeles County, where Rob Cliche Bonta wants to put L.A. County's probation department and the juvenile halls under a state receiver. Is that going to solve the problem, or is somebody just going to get rich while those conditions continue as the gang member 18-year-old inmates beat up all the 14-year-olds and then blame the POs for getting injured on the job?
I would love to know what law firm ends up getting that contract.
So it is already a department that is shaky, okay, and needs leadership. And so there was a lot going on that was missing for Oakland residents, and the opposition was able to exploit that and point the finger at me. Yeah.
The opposition.
Meaning crime victims.
That's who voted her out, and that's who organized the recall. Victims of crime. You know, the opposition.
Right now, we're going through the sound of former Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price on a local podcast.
This was on Dr. Talia Moore's podcast. She's the criminologist of the Bay, and you know they need one. Let's hear Pammy go after the media once again.
Well, kind of speaking of that, the opposition and their stance and their, coming in, just looking at the...
I think Pammy got tired.
Yeah.
She always looks like she's about ready to fall asleep.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like that Barbara Ferrer clip you play all the time.
Okay, let's compare. Here is Ferrer.
Yeah.
Here's Pam Price.
Yeah.
Here's them at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, Pamela Price sounds tired. Barbara Ferrer sounds confused.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just looking...
Wait, I got to save that. I don't even know what I call it, but I need it. So let's save that as Pam Price.
How do you spell that?
Pam Price, Hyea. That's how.
Yeah.
Don't ever expect me to find that clip.
We'll see you in December, Pammy. There's going to be hundreds of clips that have no context whatsoever when we do Drop of the Year.
And that's going to be one of them.
Just looking at the finances, so the recall campaign raised over $2.6 million compared to the $330,000 that you were able to amass.
Yes, because the locals were pissed.
Yeah, this is what happens when you elect a district attorney who stands up for the criminals and ignores the crime victims.
They had backing from many police unions, business leaders, and even
Because, of course, John, there was no ill-begotten money that helped her get elected. That was all grassroots, right?
Oh, well, that and George Soros.
even your predecessor, the former DA Nancy O'Malley. Did the sheer scale of opposition surprise you?
I don't think, no, I was not surprised by the sheer scale of.
Remember when Eric Swalwell said that he supported the recall as he's the congressman for that area, and she called him a racist and said that he was a corrupt attorney when he worked at that office?
I remember that, yes. That was the one time I felt great pride in Pam.
I don't think, no, I was not surprised by the sheer scale of the opposition. I was surprised, but because we've seen this, the money, I've seen it in Oakland, where there was an effort several years ago to buy the at-large city council seat. And we saw increasingly in Oakland, we've seen, mega amounts of money being spent to buy these seats. So I wasn't.
I mean, like when Sheng was fighting the recall and she said, you got to keep me because I'm fighting Big Coal.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Surprised by that. And it's true across country. Jose Garza, the elected DA in Travis County, Texas. Elon Musk spent millions of dollars on his trying to stop his reelection.
Well, how many Teslas were getting stolen in Austin?
Yeah, it's funny how business has a bias of wanting a DA who will prosecute crime.
So we knew that millions do flow into different cities around these issues. I think what was surprising, what we did not anticipate, was the way that the media essentially bought into everything that they were saying and amplified it. That's what.
You mean when victims of crime said you wouldn't take their calls, like Brenda Grisham?
Well, this is the argument that many politicians make. If the news media would just stop reporting on crime, then people would feel safe. So the problem is not that the crimes occur. The problem is that the news media reports on it, and then people share it on social media, and it ends up in all of these various social networks, and word gets out.
Was surprising that you could not see, we couldn't get a fair coverage. People were not getting.
You also weren't doing interviews, and then when you finally did do interviews, they didn't go very well.
No, she was rude and insulting.
We couldn't get a fair coverage. People were not getting real information, accurate information from the media. That everything, once they started latching on to the recall, that everything we did was framed in the context of the recall. So if I charged someone, with anything, there was always, and she's being recalled. They added that.
Well, we've seen you do that. We saw Chase do that, and we saw Gascon do that.
This is a bizarre claim that pops up in left-wing circles every so often, where you look at a news organization. I know that NPR, for example, has been in the light because of the government funding being pulled from the organization. Well, someone did a story on the political makeup of the newsroom at NPR, and it was something like 99% of them were Democrats. And it's not surprising if you've ever listened to that product that 99% of them are Democrats, because that's the bias that you hear on the airwaves. But you listen to people like Pamela Price, and they believe that the news media, and by the news media, I don't even mean Fox or Newsmax or talk radio or anything like that. They think the New York Times, the LA Times, public radio, the networks, CNN, MSNBC, they think that they all have a right-wing bias because they're owned by corporations. And because corporations own them, they are doing the bidding of rich people on Wall Street. So those news products come out with a right-wing slant. And that's what she's buying into here. That is super bonkers.
So it undermined everything that we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
If you want to waste an hour of your life like I did, You can do a Google on the YouTube for the Dr. Talia Moore podcast and search for the episode that was posted last night with Pamela Price, where I didn't find this clip today, but at one point, she straight up just said, "You understand, I actually prosecuted more crimes than my predecessor."
Hey, if Newsom can say that the bullet train is a success, why can't she make that claim?
If Gavin Newsom can say MacArthur Park is a beautiful park, Pammy Price can say she was actually tough on crime.
That's right, because at that point, words have just lost all meaning.